It looks like you're fourth, or no, I'm fourth.
All right, we should be live.
Hi, everyone. I'm Leslie. I'm a new host here at Awesemo. I'm here with Alex and Adam. We're doing a best ball happy hour, and the draft just actually filled. So we're about to just kind of jump in right away, and we'll take you through the best ball draft here on DraftKings. Um, oh, you're already up, Alex.
Man, that was quick.
Yeah.
So yeah, no time for intro. We're right in the action. So
Yeah.
how have you guys been liking this best ball stuff?
I've been
I
enjoying it. I've been doing it pretty much every night for the last week or so.
You've been doing it every night.
Yeah, pretty much.
I've done it a few times. I feel like this will give me more experience with it for sure.
That's perfect. Yeah, if you have any questions, I'm sure a lot of the viewers have the same ones. So,
Yeah.
have you done a lot of fantasy football drafts like classic before, like in previous
Yeah.
years?
So it's just kind of learning the differences, right now between best ball and like kind of just a regular fantasy football draft. Different players, you don't need a defense, stuff like that. I don't know. And what do you ever do the slow draft?
Yeah, I like the slow drafts because you can kind of have a bunch of them at once. So I'll have like 30 different drafts, and I wake up in the morning, it's like it's your turn to draft on like 15 drafts. So that's always a lot of fun.
I guess that makes sense. I was kind of wondering just what the advantages of the slow draft would be. But then when I do the fast ones, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, they only give you 30 seconds to pick, so that I've definitely auto drafted Darius Geis on a couple of occasions. Yeah, so what have you found to be like the biggest differences between like the classic league and best ball, or what's like kind of your inclination, or like how your strategy should be different?
Do you want to go, Adam?
What was the question, Alex?
Oh,
Like how would you approach this differently in best ball, where you get your best players in your lineup automatically versus classic, where you like set your lineup every week
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest difference is that in best ball, because of how you set the lineups, there's more of a preference to going to boom or
between
bust
like the
players
classic league?
because like one of the big problems in regular season along with those guys is even if you get them, you have to guess which weeks they're going to go off. And, so often you end up with those guys having big weeks on your bench. But in best ball, it's not the case. Like if you load up on those guys, you're just going to get their good weeks in your lineup by definition. So it's a little bit different strategy in that regard. You don't have to factor predictability of your players into who you're drafting.
yeah, I
Definitely.
think that's been nice just knowing like whenever I play regular fantasy, I have this guy on my bench and he was the best player this week. So it's nice knowing that this kind of like takes advantage of those weeks with those players.
Yeah, definitely. Like that's the biggest difference, like for sure, because like you could draft someone in classic that like a good example would be like a Tariq Cohen, where like a pretty good basketball play because he's gonna have games where he gets like a 60 yards and 8 receptions, but like on average he averages like 10 fantasy points, and there's really no scenario where he's gonna crack your starting lineup. So that really shifts the value a lot for a lot of different players. And another example is like with those third wide receivers, because it seems like the Danny Amendolas always have like a couple 20-point games this season, but you never start them in like a regular league.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it probably shifts the value the most for those types of guys and for your, like receiving back running backs where you're just never, like you said with Cohen, but like you're just never confident in what games they're going to go off. But just in best ball, you can kind of load up on them later.
Oh my
Cohen is
god.
a perfect example of that. I feel like I always take him and then I never know what weeks to play him and it's always the wrong ones.
Exactly.
I just had a draft disaster. I was like trying to sort it by ADP, and then like all the playable players were off the screen.
What do you guys think about how early people are taking Lamar and Mahomes?
I've drafted. I think I have Lamar in like 1 out of 35 drafts so far, and Mahomes in maybe 2 out of 35. So I'm not really with it.
I
You
think
just have to get them both so early right now. I mean, I'm honestly kind of surprised. I got Lamar. I was lucky. I took the risk on him early last year, but I considered early like third round, and people are taking them as their first player.
Yeah, I think it kind of just paints you into a box where you have to that guy like has to be the best quarterback, which obviously there's a good chance of it. But I think you kind of increase the ceiling of your team overall by waiting a little bit on quarterbacks and hoping that you get a guy that kind of outperforms his median projection.
the really tough part is like you got to get the quarterback in Mahomes' case and the receiver because you're going to be
Right.
competing against all these people in weeks 15 and 16 that have like Kelsey and Mahomes or Tyreek Hill and Mahomes. And the problem is if you force Mahomes in your lineup, like you can't count on getting those guys in the same lineup. So it makes it really tough to like pull off the draft.
Yeah, exactly. And Lamar, obviously, you don't need to stack as much, but it almost goes too far the other direction. Like outside, Andrews is fine and Hollywood Brown's good, but like, who are you stacking Lamar with, really? That you feel great about.
Yeah, no, I know you had a big week last year with Lamar, right, where you didn't stack him. So,
Yeah, I think I had with Andrews. I think it was Lamar
oh,
Andrews,
you had
but
Andrews, okay.
yeah, I stacked them. I didn't run it back. I think is what it was. That was weird. But yeah, I had $100,000 week with Lamar last year, so I can the way I see it, I can just not draft Lamar in best ball, and I'm still up money no matter what happens.
Nice, man. You hedged in advance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, last year I feel like was the year to get him because now I'm like, is he going to have that kind of a performance again this year?
Yeah, and that's the thing with where he's being drafted. He really has to for it to work out.
Yeah, I think with best ball too, it's like you can have three quarterbacks and like you stack all three, and that gives you a pretty good chance of hitting like a winning quarterback each week. So like having a Lamar that isn't as good a stack is it doesn't really like have as great a correlation with your lineup, but I don't hate it too because he's such a good player.
He's so fun to watch. Um, so when you stack, will you do you start with a player and then build your stack on that? Or understand what I'm saying? So do you take a player, like say who did you take first? And then build around that? Or do you have a player in mind to build around?
Yeah, definitely. Like the way it typically works is like the ADP of quarterbacks is after like the ADP of all the receivers that are any good. So like example is I got Cup at 22. I kind of rushed that pick, so it wasn't exactly who I wanted to get, but now I know Goff is gonna be ADP about 140. So later in the draft, I'm definitely planning on devoting a pick around like 120, 130 to Goff, and like you kind of go off the receivers you draft early to pick your quarterbacks.
Yeah,
Uh,
it just goes kind of like based on what falls to you. Like for me right now, I have Devontae Adams, AJ Brown, and DJ Moore. So I know the ADP for all those quarterbacks. Tannehill and Bridgewater is really late. Rodgers is relatively late. So the way it's shaping up now, I'll still have flexibility to either wait it out on quarterbacks there, or if in the mid rounds the opportunity comes up to kind of grab like a quarterback and wide receiver pairing, I can look for that still too.
Man, Adam, are you going zero RB?
Not intentionally. I hate it. No, I have Miles Sanders.
Oh, okay, nice, nice.
Yeah.
I thought you were pulling a big power move here, and because the zero RB is kind of like the trendy
Yeah,
strategy these days.
I've been doing it from the turn a decent amount. Like if Sanders is going, or I think normally I end up doing it from like ninth or 10th, because I'll end up with like one of the tight ends and Adams or something like that, and then it just kind of naturally ends up building. But yeah, I was able to get Sanders in this one, so one running back and then probably some flyers later.
Nice, man. Man, I've been drafting a ton of Le'Veon Bell, but then this report came out today that Frank Gore has been the best back at practice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe that, but at the same time, you had that report, but you had the report a couple days ago too about where Adam Gase said that they limited Bell because he was injured, and Bell was like, "I'm not injured, I need to practice," and then that's followed up with Gore. So I don't know, it's weird. I just never trust the Jets.
Yeah, I try not to get any Jets players.
Well, they're also like low in the draft usually, aside from Bell. Like, so I've been like totally smashing on the Jets like in every single one of these drafts because
Yeah.
like it's just you want a guy who's starting and you know they're starting basically. So
Yeah.
yeah, Le'Veon fell to me at 51. So I'm kind of like my other pick here is maybe Will Fuller or Robert Woods. Since I have Cup, I think I might go with Woods because then I can get a really good correlation with my QB. Leslie, who have you got so far on your team here?
I just took Melvin Gordon.
Nice.
I have a lot of running backs, so I'm doing the opposite of that.
Just all RB.
Yeah, the college
Nice.
really makes me nervous. I think he's going to do better in Atlanta, but it still makes me nervous. And Derrick Henry, he also is someone else who had like a great performance last season, and it makes me a little bit nervous. I mean, so many of these guys, I mean,
Yeah, it's tough because like if they had the good performance last year, they're getting drafted really early. But then if
yeah.
they didn't, there's usually like a reason why, right?
Right. I think Derrick Henry's backup might be my highest owned player so far, so I'm kind of hoping
Really?
that he drops off this year.
Hey,
Is that Darrington Evans?
Darrington Evans, yeah, he just keeps being there late in like every draft that I do.
Nice, man. Yeah, one of the big topics in these is like, do you want to handcuff your running back or do you want to handcuff or just pick a backup that isn't like your running back? So that's always like an interesting debate. I think like everyone on Twitter is always like, you either do or you don't, but it like really depends on what league you're in my opinion. But how do you
Yeah,
guys feel about that?
I think it definitely depends on what tournament you're playing, but as far as the large field tournaments go, I try not to handcuff my guys because I know I'm playing. I mean, I'm ultimately planning on having 150 lineups in it, so I know that I can get exposure to all of these different backups. I'd rather them be on teams where I can maximize their upside if the starter gets hurt, as opposed to I'm losing my second round pick in that situation. So I try and keep it different. Obviously, if someone drops like 60 picks beyond ADP or something, I'll just grab them as far as backups go. But yeah, I try and kind of just spread them out across my teams.
someone in the chat said that they're new to best ball. So would you basically just want a lot of boom or bust guys?
Well, I think like the best players are never like boom bust. Like you kind of like the guys you get early aren't very boom bust. It helps to get a couple of running backs early because like you can't really find them later in the draft. Ones that are any good. Um, but then like you can make up for that at the end of the draft by drafting a lot of like wide receivers that are like kind of buried behind a couple guys because they'll have a couple of good weeks every year that will like improve your team performance. And you don't have to worry about like which weeks they're on the bench.
I wish all fantasy was like this.
It's
It's definitely my favorite form of season.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
not having to like set your lineup every week definitely makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, I haven't even thought about that part yet. I think I'm in like five or six. I've signed or agreed to be in five or six regular leagues this year, which every year I'm like, why do I do this? Because then the morning of, or, trades, all that kind of stuff, it just takes up a lot of time. And this way, it's already all done.
Yeah, last year I did a lot of I did some best balls on a different site where there were still like 3 waiver periods, and I was just like, oh, I'll be able to keep up with it. And then I think by the final waiver period, I just paid one of my friends to go in and do it for me.
Nice, man. I didn't know you could do that. That's a good idea. So one of the things I noticed here is like on the Android app, you can't sort by ADP very easily, but on the iPhone app, you can. And like, I don't know. Do you guys have Android or iPhone?
I have iPhone.
I have an iPhone too.
Yeah, so that's like an advantage because like one of my strategies, like I've noticed this is like how you can get the best teams is like sort by ADP and then just pick off the like player you like the most of the next like 12 or so because then you'll let your favorite players like come to you instead of like um let's see. I got my
Yeah, instead of reaching for.
yeah. Instead
Yeah,
of
so
yeah, like
find it.
oh shoot. Uh-oh. Did my pick go through?
Brandon
Okay.
Cooks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm frozen here. All right. Gotta get back in the draft. Scary moment. Yeah, if you guys are watching in the chat, let us know. Like, what do you have any questions about basketball, or what have your experiences been like? Always interested in hearing what people have been thinking so far.
Yeah, I like switching it to ADP, rank by ADP a lot better.
Nice.
I also like best ball because you can get in on this at any point in the day. You know, you can just get in a draft and go.
Yeah, that's the awesome part about it because like you don't have to coordinate with all your friends like to pick a draft
Yeah.
day like a month in advance, you know.
Yeah, somebody sent me a poll the other day about when we should do it. It's just like, can you just pick a time?
Nice. I have been really slacking on picking my next players, so do you guys like build up a queue or anything or I guess
I normally don't. I kind of just go through and mentally figure out who I want. It would probably be more efficient to build it up, but I don't.
I don't like any of these options right now.
wow, Leslie, you picked another running back. You're really
Oh my
going
God,
for
I'm
it.
about to pick one again.
Yeah,
That was a panic move. I need to be paying more attention to, yeah, the queue would definitely help if I would put some people in there.
okay, I see Leslie you got Kittle and
Yeah.
you got Mike Evans. So are you gonna try to get Garoppolo and Brady later?
Oh, that might not be a bad idea. I'm just worried again about Tom Brady. I feel like, I don't know. I don't feel like he's going to do very well this season.
He had a rough season last year, but I think there's reason for optimism because his wide receivers last year just straight up weren't very good, and
Yeah,
Yeah, that's cool.
there was no
a
tight
lot better team
end.
around them this year.
Yeah, yeah. Now he has two of the top wide receivers in the league, so that'll
Plus, he gets
definitely
Gronk
help.
back.
Well, that's something.
Yeah.
Grant can get the team pumped up.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't know how that's going to go. But yeah, I guess Brady might do a little bit better. And I like Arians a lot. It might be nice for him to have a change after all this time.
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna have to have a good year if Tampa is gonna do well. So they don't really have great running backs to lean on.
I have no idea who I want here.
Well, I hope you don't get the guy I'm looking at.
I'm not taking Trout. I've been getting a lot of Gibson lately, which I don't love, but
That one's tough because it's so hard to like know what to make of the Washington running back situation. But
yeah,
Adam, you're like a DC guy, right? So I know you're in Baltimore now, right? So
yeah. But I mean, I like Gibson because if they don't, if Washington doesn't like force him into being a running back, he's going to be one of the most talented guys they have on offense that they can just get the ball in space and he can do things. I'm concerned that they're going to just make him a running back and not be creative with him. But I'm hoping that Rivera is creative enough. He has a history of it for sure. That they kind of just make sure Gibson's getting the ball. So yeah, it definitely to me it's one of the picks that where he's being drafted at right now, he could end up being an absolutely awful pick if they basically just say like we're running a backfield with three running backs and we're treating him like a running back. But he could end up being a really good value there if they are going to get him out in space and give him the ball and throw to him and stuff. So I think that'll be the case. So I like him. It's just I think the floor is pretty low.
nice. That's a good like seventh round pick. So that makes a lot of sense.
How do you um across a bunch of drafts, like do you pay attention to how much of guys you're getting and kind of adjust um to make sure you're not kind of putting all your eggs in one basket?
A tiny bit, because it's like you're hoping to get all these teams to week 15 when the playoffs happen, or I think it's maybe, is it week 14 through
It's
16?
yeah, it's 14, 15, and 16.
Yeah, so the problem is if you draft the same guys every time, it's kind of like playing a GPP where if you have the same team except like two off, like you're gonna really like hurt your chances of winning with both of them. So
Right.
I'm factoring that in a little bit, but it's still really hard to fully diversify. I don't know. What have you guys been finding?
Yeah, I mean, so what I've been doing is tracking, how much of who I have and where I've been drafting them, and then obviously I'm not as concerned about kind of overdrafting guys late because they're so cheap. But I've been trying to kind of just keep an eye on what I'm doing with my like early round picks, and if I'm getting way over, if I'm getting a lot more of someone than I think I should be, then just for the day or whatever, I just drop them around in my rankings, and then I'll still get some, obviously, but won't get nearly as much. And then normally after a day or two, it kind of evens back out to where I feel like I can just go back to how I want to rank them.
Nice.
Emac was in the chat and he was kind of wondering the same things about the slow drafts that we were talking about earlier. He was wanting to know, what your opinions on the slow versus fast drafts are, because he can only manage one fast draft at a time, but like you were saying, he can manage tons of slow drafts at a time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with what Alex was saying before the show, where like I'm trying to get 150 of these drafts done before the season, and you can only do so many fast drafts at once. So having a bunch of slow drafts going in the background, gives you the chance to get a bunch of those drafts done at a normal pace, and then when you have time during the day, you can do the fast drafts.
That makes sense. I was wondering about that before today, why anyone would choose to take so long to make their pick. If they were really like thinking about it that much, or
Yeah, I mean, the slow drafts are nice for the reasons Adam was saying about how you can manage like so many different ones. Like one of the things you can do as a best ball player is load up like a few different sites at once. It's a little bit harder on DraftKings because it's on the app, but you could be doing drafts on a few different sites. It's kind of like multi-tabling back in the online poker days. So get a little bit more action.
Are
someone
you
said,
so are you playing across multiple sites?
I've been mostly doing DraftKings just because it's like so easy on on the app, like when you're checking your DFS results and stuff. So
Yeah, exactly. I'll say if they would just build in like draft used to have like the automatic exposure thing, it would be perfect.
yeah, I mean, I kind of wonder what they have up their sleeve because obviously this mobile only launch is kind of not the final version. I'm assuming.
Yeah. Yeah, I assume sooner than later they end up with all the bells and whistles that you would expect them to have. Right now, it's kind of just it seems like it was kind of just like, oh, weird, weird stuff's going on. We should probably throw together a best ball thing. I should probably start finding things other than wide receivers to draft.
I took Tom Brady finally. I was like, somebody else is going to take him otherwise.
It's a good move. Yeah, I think that you got him right around his ADP, so you didn't even have to grab him early. That was nice.
Someone said that they like to draft 3 mid-tier quarterbacks. Do you recommend stacking one wide receiver or tight end with each quarterback, or do you pick one of the quarterbacks to build a larger stack with? I think we already touched on that a little bit,
I
but
typically draft two. Sometimes I'll take three, but yeah, I try and get at least one pass catcher with my quarterback. Ideally, I'm getting like two guys with each quarterback.
Here's kind of how I'm approaching it is like there's three important weeks here. Weeks 14, 15, and 16. And it's like the odds of the same stack going off in each week is going to be low. So it's like you got to have the perfect combination of three stacks like for those 3 weeks. And like whoever gets that combo right, because there's so many different combos of like three different quarterback wide receivers, that's going to be who's going to take down the $1 million, I think.
maybe one of us.
I think so. I mean, like, Well, I was hoping to have a better draft, but you guys kept taking all the players I was looking at. Like I was like eyeing Higby, and then Leslie, you got him.
I
So
think he's gonna have a good year this year.
I think you might be right.
I got a couple tight ends at that turn.
Nice.
Maybe you'll maybe you'll draft somebody that throws a pass at some point, but haven't gotten there yet.
If you're watching, we just want to request that you hit the like button. We've only got 11 right now, so let's try and get to at least 20.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of people are going to be watching this later too. So if you're watching the not live, we appreciate all your support too. So hit that thumbs up.
So are our picks showing like on the screen?
I can pull up the draft board here. So I see you got Jasicki and Hooper just now.
Yeah, it's one strategy that I've been liking because in a lot of my drafts, I'm getting Kelsey or Kittle in the second round, which I really, really like, but couldn't do it here, picking 12 and 13. But I've liked kind of going double tight end in the mid rounds if I'm able to, because I think that there's just so much upside in a few of those guys, Jasicki, Hooper, Ingram, being three of them. But obviously you don't know which one it's going to be. But again, like if this were a regular season long, it's a nightmare guessing every week between Jasicki and Hooper. But now I can just whichever one has the big week, they're going to be my lineup. Plus, it gives those guys their quarterbacks go so late. It gives you a couple more stacking options later.
Nice, man. Yeah, I think that's a good point where, like, if you get three like upside guys, like it'll be hard in a classic league like to predict which one to pick. But obviously, we're not worried about that here.
Yeah, and it set me up hopefully for a Cleveland stack with Hooper and Landry. I always get a little bit scared because people like to reach on Mayfield, but we'll see.
Leslie, I see you just picked up another quarterback here, Drew Brees.
Yeah, I figured I might as well. Although I was eyeing Cohen, another running back.
Yeah, I mean, both good picks for sure. We got KL in the chat. He's saying the Steelers are going to be good this year. So, have you guys been getting a lot of Steelers in your drafts?
I've been getting a lot of Juju. I have a couple of Pittsburgh stacks with Juju and Roethlisberger. I need to get some more with Chase Claypool. He's someone that I've been trying to grab late recently.
Nice.
But yeah, I do think that they're one of the teams that's kind of easier to stack because like Juju goes early, but then the quarterback and all of the other pass catchers go really late, whether it's Johnson or Ebron or Claypool or James Washington. Like, so it's a team where you don't have to, whereas, teams like the Cowboys or the Texans, you have to allocate so much draft capital to get the stacks that you want. Whereas with Pittsburgh, they're really easy to make like a secondary stack or a primary stack where you're able to just load up on the kind of one-offs around them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, where the quarterback should like figure into like your decision about what receivers maybe to get. Because like if this stack is just easier to set up later in the draft, like then you're not spending all those 8th, 9th round picks on your QB. So like that, Leslie, how are your stacks looking so far?
So I have. Oh wait. See, I wish that this was on desktop. I'm so much more like I always do all my NBA and MLB on desktop. So to do it on my phone is just so totally different. I have Tom Brady and Mike Evans.
Nice.
That's what I have so far. But yeah, I might grab Garoppolo if he's still available. I definitely not take any more running backs.
Yeah, your team is stacked in running back.
I'm hoping to get my first stack here if Mayfield doesn't go right before this pick.
Nice.
Where do you guys prefer to be in the draft? Like some people prefer to be at the one, or I kind of prefer to be like mid to late, I guess.
I like the experience of being in the middle because you draft like once every 12 picks, where like you have to wait 24 picks otherwise, and that makes it really hard to like get guys at the right ADP because you can't really set up your pick because you don't know if they're going to be there in 24 more picks.
Yeah.
But then again, like Christian McCaffrey is such a big advantage that I almost feel like number one pick is the optimal this year. Um, well, Adam, what do you think, man? Where do you like drafting this year?
I prefer picking either at the one of the first couple picks or one of the last couple picks of the round because of the strategy of stacking. I think that it just makes it a lot easier to kind of set up what you want. Like because to get stacks, a lot of times you end up reaching by a round or so, and it can be a lot harder. I think you mentioned it to judge when you have to make a pick and then guess who's going to be there in 12 picks. Whereas when you're either picking one or picking 12 or somewhere around there, a lot of times you'll get kind of cool situations where like one that I got earlier today, picking I think first was like I already had Ingram at tight end, and then it just so happened that Daniel Jones and Golden Tate were both sitting there when it got back to me, and so I kind of was able to just grab a stack that I wasn't planning on, but I knew obviously that I could just get both of them. Didn't have to like guess, am I going to end up with Tate plus Ingram and no quarterback? So from a stacking standpoint, I think it becomes a lot easier if you're at one end or the other. And then obviously getting McCaffrey makes it so that you can kind of just draft high upside receivers and tight ends for a long time afterwards, which is nice.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to be able to get those two guys at the same time and set up the stack. That's a good point. Um, Leslie, how do you feel about where you start off?
I understand what you're saying, being kind of like first or last and getting those two picks in a row. I feel like that is a big advantage, but at the same time, I feel like when I'm in the middle, I can get kind of more players around the same like rank, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
There's not such a big gap in those players. Oh,
Man, Adam, how did you
Yeah,
steal
I feel
Zach
like picking the middle.
Moss's? Damn.
What do
Sorry.
you say?
You stole Zach Moss at 133. That's an absolute bargain.
Yeah, I don't love him obviously, but that's a pretty far drop. It seems like.
Dude, someone took Goff even though I have Cup and Woods.
God, I hate that.
I'm so screwed. Um, all right, I gotta make a pick though. So yikes. This
If only you could do like draft day trades.
That's a good point. Um, yeah, sorry, Adam. What were you saying about where you pick?
I don't remember.
That's all good.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Man, have you guys been following the training camp stuff? Because like Keyshawn Vaughn was being drafted like really early, 2 weeks ago. Maybe.
I've been kind of following it, just kind of seeing tweets and trying to obviously pay some attention, but also not get completely bogged down in it because I think that's something that everyone does and can be a problem. But yeah, he was kind of interesting because there was the one report where they were talking about him on special teams, but then the same day there was a quote about how good he's looked as a running back and how good his vision's been. So I think that kind of knocked his ADP probably a little farther than it should have. So he's someone that I'm still getting a good amount of because it did knock it down a little bit, and I think that for basically what you're drafting as, like you're not drafting him expecting him to be like your workhorse running back that's in your lineup every week. You're drafting him as someone that you think is going to have a relatively decent role out of the Tampa backfield and has the opportunity to work out a bigger role as the season goes on. So I think where he's getting drafted now still has some value.
Nice.
how much of your bankroll would you guys consider putting towards best ball versus your per week in play volume?
So I think I was talking about it with a friend earlier, but I think, and obviously I could be wrong, but I think that there's probably a bigger edge in best ball than you're going to get in most DFS tournaments, just because you have so many different decision points and limited time to make them. There's just more ways for people to make mistakes. So I think that obviously you have to kind of weigh that against the fact that you compound your returns in DFS. But I think that if I basically had $3,000 and it was just like, okay, do I play DFS tournaments or I can only do one or the other, I would lean towards best ball. Just I think there's going to be a bigger advantage.
That's a really tough question because you get the return on your money like in such a long period of time. Or
Right.
Adam, you're saying like the compounding is an issue. So it's really like a long-term investment versus short-term investment, and it really depends on the person. I think like if you're willing
Yeah.
to deposit like a few $100 to play these tournaments and not see that money for 4 months, I think it's a great way to get some entertainment and hopefully
Yeah,
win
it
some
definitely
big
depends on your
bucks.
goals. Like, if your like goal is to say like I just want to start with this bankroll and 6 months from now have a bigger bankroll to play DFS more seriously, I think there's probably a better chance that you get a positive return from best ball than from DFS right away. But obviously, like you said, the upside is much higher to allocating it towards DFS. Oh, I'm almost up.
Have either of you taken Joe Burrow in
I don't
any?
have any.
No one talked me into it on the last happy hour. So
Oh, I
I
think I
have,
remember that now. Yeah.
yeah. How are you feeling about Joe Burrow this year?
I don't know. Rookies make me nervous. You just don't know how they're going to perform really. Like I loved him at LSU and he's obviously, I mean, incredible, but I sometimes you just don't know how that's going to translate to the NFL. I don't know. I was reading something earlier that um last year they threw the ball the Bengals at least 36 times in I think it was 11 of their games. So he's got a pretty good chance. And Zach Taylor, I feel like his offense will work out with Joe Burrow, but again, it's kind of like a rookie. I'm a little bit hesitant.
Yeah, it's tough because like he was so good in college, but then they're plugging him into the worst team basically in the Bengals. So like
Yeah.
that could just go really poorly. You could definitely see that, but then like since you haven't seen it yet, it's like what is it really going to be like? And that I think in general the rookies go overdrafted in these because usually there's like evidence that a guy isn't like the goat before you pick them. With rookies, there is no like stats to like go on. Like you wouldn't look,
Yeah.
yeah, you wouldn't look at like Deontay Johnson and be like, this guy is gonna be the next Antonio Brown, right? Because we know like he's had a few seasons that were good but not great. But if you have a Joe Burrow, you're like maybe this guy is gonna like be way better than expected because like there's nothing to go on. But Adam, how do you judge like the rookies versus the vets?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I personally haven't really been getting to Burrow, but it's mostly because I haven't been getting a lot of Tyler Boyd or AJ Green to build around. Like and all the quarterbacks in that range of that draft range, they're basically just guys that I don't have a strong preference between. So I'm just grabbing whoever I can stack with. But yeah, I agree with you in general. Rookies kind of get overhyped and taken too early. Um, Burrow, I do expect to be good, and I do think that I think he actually landed in a pretty decent spot as far as the weapons around him. Because you have Mixon in the backfield, you also have Green, you have Boyd. So I do think he's a good pick. Like I don't think that he's specifically going too high. It's just been more that's difficult to stack him. Going back to our conversation earlier about handcuffs, I just screwed up and forgot that I had taken Miles Sanders on this team. So I was trying to figure out who to take with my second pick and went Austin Scott, thinking like, oh, okay, I'll grab this guy in case Sanders gets hurt, and then totally forgot that I already had Sanders. So normally I wouldn't have made that pick.
Yeah, I just took Philip Rivers, which I don't know why I did that.
Philip Rivers, I like him this year. Like I think that, I mean, he's a good quarterback, and then kind of filling in for where Andrew Luck left off, and then there was like an interim year between. So
Yeah.
it's kind of the upside
It's
there.
another cheap stack too, because like
Yeah.
T.Y. Hilton goes relatively early, but not that early. But then
Hmm.
beyond that, you have Paris Campbell that goes late, Jack Doyle goes late, um, Michael Pittman goes pretty late, and Rivers goes late. So it's another one where you're getting upside from the stack, but you're not really paying that much for it.
We got a couple of questions from some familiar faces in the chat. First, Nolan, he said, "Why the Claypool of Adam?"
I just think that because of the uncertainty around who's going to be the who's going to get the ball outside of Juju? Is it going to be Washington? Is it going to be Johnson? Is it going to be Claypool? Reports out of camp have been that Claypool basically is a freak and that he's going to be a problem for defenses. And he's just he's free. You can get him in the 18th, 17th, 18th, 19th round, and it's just really unusual to be able to get that kind of upside. So like when you're talking about the late picks, I think volatility becomes really important because, for example, just off the top of my head, you have guys like Adam Humphries available there. You have Russell Gage available there. You know what those guys are. They're slot receivers that don't really have a really high ceiling. They might be in your lineup a week or two, but they're not going to be the guy that at the end of the year you say like, man, that was a steal. Those guys won me the tournament. Chase Claypool, and players like that, you just have no idea how they're going to be used. They might not be used at all. They might end up being by the end of the year being a legit stud. And so I think that there's just really really high upside to going to guys like that.
Nice. Well, Nolan, I hope that that convinced you to draft some more Claypool here. We got Laffy in the chat. He said, "Who won your internal league at Awesemo last season?"
I'm guessing based on the question that was Lofty.
Yeah, I have a feeling. So hopefully we get to run that back. John said he loves Rivers, is indoors, and the late round. Dobbs is saying Burrow's got Boyd and AJ Green, so he's gonna be good. Man,
I agree with that.
But Dobbs, like, did you roster Tyler Boyd last year at all? Because he was the guy I lost the most money on, I have to say.
He's been better, if I remember correctly, when Green plays. Weirdly enough,
That is interesting. Yeah, it's been a while, so it's hard to even remember.
yeah, I think I remember that being just a talking point going into last year that Boyd was going to get more targets, but that based on like weeks that Green had been out, his efficiency really dropped off. So I'm not too worried about him this year with Green being back because the target he's still going to get plenty of targets, just fewer than last year, but I think he should be more efficient.
Man, AJ Green was my sleeper pick last year, like getting him in like 8th round or something, and that just shows like, man, like you have no idea what's gonna happen in these seasons because like he was supposed to be out a few weeks or something.
Yeah, it was him and Melvin Gordon.
Yeah,
were like the guys that
the holdout.
That it was. Yeah, the Melvin Gordon holdout and AJ Green injury. They were the big ones. Like, so what round are you taking them in? Because it got to the point where even like as news with Green kind of got more questionable, his ADP just plummeted. So it was just like, okay, well, so now I can get him in the 9th round. I'm still gonna do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough to like some of these guys like have huge upside, like Adam, you're saying, but then it's like, what's the chance of them even playing this year? Like Josh Gordon and Antonio Brown. Are those too risky for you? Or?
Right. Like I've been grabbing Brown in like the 19th round sometimes just because it's like I look and it kind of goes back to like, okay, I already have like 8 receivers on my team. Adam Humphries is probably never going to be in my lineup. There really only needs to be like what, a 2% chance that Antonio Brown signs with a team and plays 8 weeks this season.
That's true. Yeah, there was a report today like that he might be suspended more based on some court case or something. So, like, that doesn't feel good if you have him. But I see his ADP is 194, so people are drafting him.
Yeah, he's around right now. I'm looking at him. It's like I don't think so.
I have the worst build here. Like, how's the draft turning out for you guys? Because all my quarterbacks got swiped from me.
I've made a couple of mistakes just like out of not totally paying attention. Like I said, with drafting Boston Scott when I wouldn't have. I took Bridgewater as my second quarterback, which is fine. Like I haven't paired with DJ Moore, but my thinking was that I was going to be able to pair him also with either Curtis Samuel or Robbie Anderson, and just totally missed both of those guys that already went. So not in love with where I drafted Bridgewater, considering I only have Moore. But overall, I think I'm pretty happy with my team so far.
Nice. Leslie, how are you feeling? Too many running backs, or are you feeling good about that now?
I'm feeling okay about that now.
Nice.
Who do you guys think is going to start at quarterback for the Patriots?
I mean, I hope it's Cam Newton because I have him ranked really high in my rankings.
Have you been getting a lot of him? Because I have him pretty high too, but the way my rosters have worked out, I haven't been getting that much.
No, I haven't gotten him as much as I would think, just because it might be just how I've sorted the players, because I feel like Edelman is always like, really far down on my screen, and
Yeah.
so I never like scroll down far enough. It's a really dumb reason.
Yeah, I just feel like I haven't gotten that much because it's like Edelman, and then you're guessing between Harry and like I don't care about Sanu. It just ends up. I think the only times I've gotten him has been when I have like another stack, and then he kind of falls, and I already have Edelman, so it's just like whatever, I'll grab Cam because of the upside.
I
What?
hope he starts, but I've been talking to some people and they don't think he's gonna start at all.
I
Which
think he will. Like he's been getting the first team reps. Stidham's kind of fallen off. Um, yeah, I mean, I'd be surprised if he doesn't.
yeah, I agree. Makes
Well,
me nervous to take him though.
Leslie, what's your team that you root for?
The Rams.
Nice. So how are you feeling about the Rams this year? Are there any like sleeper picks you like?
Like I said, I really like Higby. I think when he's out on the field, he does really well. I mean, it's just that they don't have him out there very often. So we'll see. It's just such a strange season, too. Have you guys been watching Hard Knocks?
I haven't.
No, what's been going on?
Just, just kind of watching all of the protocols and just all of that kind of stuff, that's going on right now. I don't know. It kind of makes it watching that and all of the testing they have to do every day and then how spread out their meetings are. It just kind of, I feel like this could be a season that's up for grabs for anyone. I mean, if there's an outbreak or something, and that kind of stuff too, when you're drafting, are you thinking about that? People's backups. If somebody goes out, and their backup has to come in, or it's, I don't know, with COVID.
The thing I'm worried about is that the schedule is not going to play out the way that they've set it up, because in MLB we've had so many postponements, and teams will be off for like a whole week while they kind of do all the testing and make sure that they can field the team that's going to be safe. And I'm
Yeah.
really worried that in NFL it's going to be the same way. This is going to be like who's playing week to week is going to be very unpredictable. But that could make basketball a lot of fun. So, Adam, any thoughts on the schedule this year?
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it, but I think that's a good point. I guess maybe just in general, not weighting strength of schedule too much into what you're doing, because not only is there the potential for things to kind of get rearranged, but also just for individual defensive players. We've already seen so many opt out, but if we see it all the time. One linebacker or one corner goes down, like if he just is sick that week, um, it changes everything. So I think probably just even more variance than normal injuries as far as what defenses actually end up being good, or I think it's just gonna be even more difficult to project. So probably just something that you want to wait.
Yeah, that's a really interesting dynamic this year, and like for classic, that's one nice thing about being able to set your roster, I guess. Or best ball, it's gonna be pretty random how that shakes out for everyone.
Yeah, but like you said, that might make it more fun.
I hope so.
So we've been using the wingman tool on here. What is kind of your favorite feature of the Awesemo season long NFL package?
Yeah, I think like the most important thing is that it's all built on projections, like the same ones I use for DFS. So I'm really like digging down into all the metrics to figure out which players are the best in here, and then also like the replacement value players. So a lot of that went into the rankings. We got a lot of great articles and videos, as you guys know, since you're watching, and yeah, I mean, I think that if you're trying to win your drafts or make some money in best ball, you're just gonna slay it if you use these. So, um,
Oh, you're up, yeah.
yeah, I got me.
Adam, have you been using the tools when you've been drafting?
Yeah, with football especially, I like to look at a lot of different people's projections just to kind of get an idea of where, kind of where the field is, and then it makes it easier, I think, to strategize for me like throughout the draft of what I want to do. But I definitely like that Alex is typically or in a lot of spots are a lot different than the consensus. So I think that's something that, obviously if it's someone that you don't have faith in what they're doing, then it's not a good thing. But if it in this case, obviously you trust that he's done the work. And so I think it's a chance to put yourself in a position when you're doing drafts that you're taking a different approach than a lot of people, which is ultimately something that in large field tournaments is a good thing.
Oh,
Yeah, so you can actually get a $35 ticket for free too if you sign up for the draft kit to my FPC. So that's pretty cool too.
I feel like wide receivers in this draft just like disappeared.
I took
yeah.
them all, man. I have like 10. Like I messed up.
I only have seven. Normally by now I have like eight or nine at least.
This was the worst draft for me because like someone took all my quarterbacks and that now I have Nick Foles and Mitch Trubisky just because I'm scared that like I only have I only have um Sam Darnold as my other quarterback, so it's like I went really light on quarterback.
Yeah, you did. You went jet stack?
It's just yeah, just because I had Perryman and I was like that's the only guy that the quarterbacks left. It was a sad day for me.
Yeah.
Adam,
Yeah,
how are you feeling about your
my
squad?
wide receiver room's really thin.
Yeah. I feel like I'm light on wide receivers too.
I got Claypool in the 18th though, so I'm happy.
Who are your guys' favorite like late round picks? Like a
Um,
last pick?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I mentioned Claypool, but I've been getting a lot of Gio Bernard lately, just because I think that obviously he's proven as far as what he does, but a lot of the running backs left around that point are guys that are still kind of in like training camp battles, and you don't know exactly how it's going to shake out. You know what Bernard's role is. Like obviously he's stuck behind Joe Mixon, but if anything happens to Mixon, they have a lot of money locked up in Bernard. I fully expect him to get plenty of opportunities. If Mixon goes down. So I think he gives you a little bit more upside than a lot of the guys around him at that point. So I've been getting him a lot late. I've been getting some late Trent Taylor as well, just because there's so much uncertainty in the wide receiver group in San Francisco as far as who's going to be out there. I don't really, you know, Taylor's kind of the one that's falling to the very end of the draft, so I'm just grabbing him and hoping for the best.
Nice. Leslie, any 20th round picks that you really like?
I just took Josh Kelly with the Chargers, another running
Nice.
back. So I ended the draft the way I started it.
With the running
Yeah.
back?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you guys want to go through each of our teams here and kind of do a deep dive?
Sure.
Sure.
Alright. Let me. Adam, we'll pull up your team here first. So, you got. You had the 12th pick, so you got Miles Sanders and Devontae Adams with
Yeah,
the first picks. That was a pretty nice start. I mean, those guys they usually get drafted earlier than that, so they kind of came to you.
yeah. I think I have him eighth and ninth overall, so I'm obviously happy to get both of those guys turn. The only reason I hesitated was I've been getting a lot of both of them, so it's just another team where I have Sanders and Adams. But yeah, I'm really happy with the upside both of those guys bring.
Nice, man. So obviously when you have Adams, like it becomes a choice, like you were saying, where do you invest the draft capital in Aaron Rodgers? So, you didn't end up having him. Was that just because like he got taken off the board because before you're anticipating, or just like you don't think he's worth the pick?
It was kind of just the way it worked out. I obviously he was in consideration, but I wasn't looking for him quite as much as I typically do
Mm-hmm.
because I had started with Adams, Brown, and Moore. And so I knew that I had a lot of stacking options late, and I kind of wanted to just keep as much flexibility as I could, because of that. And then it ended up working out that I took Jarvis Landry as my fifth wide receiver, but then Cooper was there, and I was pretty confident that Mayfield would come back. So it just set up as a spot where I could go. I knew I was going to be able to get Landry, Cooper, Mayfield, and then wait on one of my other quarterbacks. So it kind of just ended up that I didn't really want to pay that price for Rodgers in this one.
Nice, man. I really like your team. I mean, you got really bargains on a lot of different guys. Will Fuller, I was eyeing him. You grabbed him before I could get my hands on him.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of him, and I love getting him as like my fourth receiver. It's just he's another one where can kind of be a nightmare in season long because it's so many weeks for him where it's like, oh, he got 6 or oh, he got 36. In best ball, obviously that's a benefit.
Yeah, with him, it's like he could be injured on the first few plays of the game. It
That too.
happens
Yeah,
all the time. So, um, Zach Moss, that was another guy that really dropped to you. You got it looks like in probably the 12th round where he has a 124 ADP. So that was a nice pickup. You got your favorite guys, Darrington Evans and Claypool.
yeah.
Nice, man. So, did you went two QB, Bridgewater and Mayfield?
Yeah. I went Mayfield first, and then I think a round or two later I took Bridgewater to pair with Moore.
Nice, man. Have you been finding you have a lot of two quarterback stack teams or a lot of 3-1s usually?
Yeah, I've been mostly going two. When I get three, it typically is Washington as my third one, and it'll be because like I got McLaurin in the fourth round or whatever, and then Steven Sims drops to me, and then it's kind of just like, okay, well I may as well just grab their quarterback.
Nice, man. All
The
right.
Jets are another one that if I go three quarterback, I get because like Darnold drops, Perriman drops, Herndon, like the whole Jets team is just so cheap that I end up getting them as a third stack too.
Yeah, I mean when you're choosing between like 15th round guys, Sam Darnold, like
Right.
he he's gonna be playing all year, so that's always a great pick. Leslie, I'm looking at your team here. You did get that Tom Brady, Mike Evans stack, so that was pretty nice. Henry and Todd Gurley, Melvin Gordon, Singletary. You got a stacked running back squad here, as you were saying.
I tried.
And then you got Breeze and Rivers. It looks like as your other quarterbacks. So how are you feeling about your squad here?
I think it's pretty good. Yeah, I like I was telling you before we started here, it's kind of like I go in with a plan and then you kind of see how things drop and then there's no plan, you see what you get. I feel like it's a lot of luck, but yeah, I feel like this is an okay team.
Nice. Yeah, I think you got a good squad here. Like you got a nice balance of all the different positions, which really helps in best ball. You got your Brady, Mike Evans stack, so that's high upside. So I like that. And then I like this Dwayne Washington pick or DeAndre Washington pick. Um, that's a guy that has huge upside because
Yeah,
if Hilaire gets hurt, then Washington could have a big role.
yeah,
He's been like he's another one that we kind of like talked about uncertainty. His
Hmm.
ADP is like plummeting right now because of the reports that Daryl Williams has surpassed him. But
Hmm.
like there's still so much uncertainty in general in spots like that I think now he's just kind of falling too far because at least relative to the upside he gives you where you're able to get him.
Yeah,
when did you guys when did you guys start playing best ball, and then when do you think is the best time to kind of do it, because obviously all of these things change every day with players.
that's the toughest part of it is like you got to draft at the perfect time because last year a good example was Tyreek Hill. Um, he was like supposedly going to get suspended, and then it didn't end up happening. So people were getting him in like fourth, fifth round. Um, and then if you drafted before that news came out, you'd have a really underpriced player. So right now it's really hard to tell who's going to be that player because like a DeAndre Washington, like as Adam was saying, maybe not the best example because we don't know for sure. Like he would be the man if Hilaire gets injured, but we just saw David Montgomery almost have like a season-ending injury potentially. It turned out to not be, but then if you have that guy behind him and you got him in the 18th round, then you have a really really sick late round pick to really give you advantage. So let me throw this question back to you, Leslie. Like, do you think there's an advantage to drafting earlier versus later?
I always try and draft as late as possible just because I want to know all of the information, because let's say you're drafting now, that could all change tomorrow. So, yeah, even in regular fantasy football, I always pick when people ask the later option just so I have all of the information. I mean, I feel like that helps me at least know that the people I'm picking, or like last year, Andrew Luck retired after a lot of people had their drafts already. So it's kind of like, thank God. I mean, I wouldn't have picked him anyway. I was never a big believer in him. But I mean, all these people had Andrew Luck as their quarterback. So I don't know. I think that's a good example of why I like to do it as late as possible.
Yeah, I think it matters too, like how many teams you're planning on playing. Because if you're playing, like in this case, 150 teams, ideally you're starting early and then kind of just doing drafts up until the season starts because ADP is going to move so much and you can get different values and stuff like that. If I'm playing fewer teams, then I mean, I'd probably rather draft closer to the season starting just because there's less risk of me losing, 30% of my teams because one guy gets hurt in preseason or something.
That's a good point. And another factor may be that like the drafts will be more popular as we approach the starting of the season. So the people you're drafting with might not be as sharp like a couple days before the season. So like that would be a big advantage because you can get better values on your guys.
Yeah, that's always one of the interesting talking points because people are like, drafting early gives you an advantage if you're more involved in, paying attention to stuff. And it's like, yeah, but guys, the only people doing fantasy football drafts in April are the same people as you that are all paying attention to stuff. So you're not getting as much soft money in there.
Yeah. Man. Alex, are we going to look at yours?
Yeah, my bad. I forgot that mine was on deck. I feel really embarrassed about this one, like because
that is a hell of a bear stuff you got.
I mean, like this did not turn out at all like I planned because the quarterbacks I was hoping to get, I drafted Cup and Woods with the premise that since I had them, no one would draft Goff, but someone did draft Goff before his ADP, and that really thwarted my whole plan for my lineup.
You're so confident in that one too.
I know. Like that just totally backfired on me, and then I was left with Robinson, who the quarterback we don't really know for sure, but probably Foles. And then I got Edelman, but then Cam Newton was taken off the board. So I just ended up with all Bears players pretty much.
Yeah, I thought you at least did a good job of like salvaging it, as best you could because obviously you could see going through the draft that you just kind of kept getting sniped on quarterback, but you at least ended up with like a full Bears onslaught. So maybe they'll be a really good offense.
Well, the funny thing is, though, the real way this works out is if somehow Foles and Trubisky both have big years.
Yeah, maybe they'll turn Trubisky into like a wide receiver for you or something.
But yeah, I like that Bryce Love fell at the very last pick because I feel like I think people just didn't scroll down enough because there's a lot of hype around him now. So that was kind of nice.
I was going to take Love with one of my last picks, but I remembered I had Gibson, and I'd already forgotten I had Sanders when I took Scott. But yeah, that was just another example of where, like, if Bryce Love hits his ceiling, I don't think Antonio Gibson hits his. And so I'm getting Bryce Love exposure, but I just don't really want it on the same teams I have Gibson.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. It was cool doing this draft with you guys.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was fun. I just want to remind everyone that you guys can sign up today for an Awesemo Plus NFL Pass for 30% off with the code Roger at checkout. It gives you access to all of Awesemo's leading player projections, ownership projections, premium content, and more. And this is our first year doing a season-long fantasy football and best ball draft kit. And you're going to get that free with your NFL annual pass. And you'll be using all of the same tools as Alex will be. So it's kind of making everything a level playing field. The draft kit includes everything you need to prep, including rankings, projections, loads of content, the draft wingman, everything. And if you sign up today, you'll get a $35 credit when with the draft kit. This is a limited time offer, so it ends on August 31st, and you'll get a whole year of that stuff. So it's a $280 value for $175. So you can sign up for that by clicking Awesemo Plus on the awesemo.com homepage.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for watching the show, and I hope that you guys picked up some great tips for your best ball drafts. And Leslie and Adam, thanks a lot. I feel like we shouldn't have drafted with each other because it ended up being a tough competition here, but hopefully that was very educational.
Yeah, well, I'm about to do one with my former college roommates now, so I'm sure that one will be a lot softer.
Nice, man. All right, guys, good luck.
Have a good weekend, guys.